I think we should get to the elephant in the room. Jason Garrett finally informed that he will not return next year. So, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, all you Cowboys fans.
Welcome to Sports Den, the podcast. We are so excited that you have decided to join us this week for an update in sports news and all of our discussion. We are shorthanded this week again, but that's all right. We're going to jump right into a couple of things this week. First of all, we wanted to just mention, as we know, the passing of David Stern, former NBA Commissioner Emeritus. And we just all want to express our condolences to the Stern family and just attribute Commissioner Stern with all the praise that he deserves for being the NBA commissioner, not only for a long time, just in general, but globalizing the brand and the game of basketball in the NBA. And I know a lot of programs, a lot of different things would not be the way that they are today without David Stern kind of pushing that global brand and bringing the NBA to where it has been. People like Luka and Giannis might not be exactly where they are in the NBA without the globalization of the NBA and just basketball in general. So looking at that, I think right now the NBA is headed in a fantastic direction in that sort. And we're just very sad to see that a major figure and influence in that has passed away. So our condolences to the Stern family and just the NBA world in general. But yeah, David Stern, legendary commissioner, even if he wasn't always viewed as a great commissioner by all. I think everybody understands the impact that he made as commissioner. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I would only add, I think it's pretty safe to say there's never been a commissioner that propelled their sport into a global consciousness as quickly and as much as David Stern did. From the very first draft pick he announced being Hakeem to him seeing multiple MVPs, 3 straight MVPs in a row being non-US born MVPs, and then if you actually add Duncan in that, it actually goes up to 5.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And so it's the globalization of the sport has just been a massive thing that David Stern did, and that's something that shouldn't be taken. And then also, grief is a terrible thing for people to go through, and so our prayers go out to the Stern family and all those affected by that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just crazy, the passing of a legendary commissioner for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of, you mentioned Hakeem, and I just wanted to throw this fact in there real quick. Vince Carter.
Oh my goodness.
I just saw this today pop up on Instagram. Vince Carter was teammates with Hakeem Olajuwon for the Raptors and also Trae Young for the Atlanta Hawks. So how wild is that for longevity?
Did he check into a game? Did he check into the game yet? Let me check.
I think so. If I wasn't mistaken, I think that's why it was put up there. I did not check the.
I'm looking at the box score right now. No, he did not play tonight.
No, okay. Okay. That's a bummer.
That's a bummer because if he logs another second, he'll be the first NBA player to have played in 3 different decades,
3 different decades.
and it
That's wild.
it's just wild. He played his first NBA game, and there's 4 players on the Hawks that weren't born when he played his first NBA game.
Yep. Oh my word. Yeah. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Mhm.
Other fun NBA news. I have been slightly following this guy. I don't know if anybody else out there has really paid attention, but there's a guy who is trying to do, and he is so far 9 for 9 as of tonight, I believe. But he is trying to do 30 Jumbotron appearances at 30 NBA games in 30 days.
Wow.
And you can follow him on Reddit. He has, I think, a YouTube channel. Last night he was in Miami, and I think tonight he made it on the Jumbotron in Orlando. And the way he does it is he usually has a lower level seat, and he usually
Mhm.
dresses in something crazy. So the
Yeah.
very, very first night he dressed up as Ben Franklin at a
Mhm.
Sixers game
Yeah.
and is just dancing crazy. And if you just kind of look through some of the stuff, I think that's awesome and hysterical. I think a lot of people were like, oh, some people like knew him or knew of him,
Mhm.
and he works for Red Bull,
Okay.
but his claim is that he has done all, like, he has saved up his personal time. This is all personal. This is not a Red Bull stunt by any means. This is just a guy who loves basketball and has a crazy goal. And
Dude, if I'm Red
so
Bull, I'm giving him a raise.
dude, they're getting the publicity whether he wants it or not. So,
Yeah, man.
anyways, props to you, Jumbotron guy. 9 for 9. Hopefully next week you're 16 for 16 when we do the podcast. So,
For real.
but and hopefully I'll catch him when he comes to the Wolves game. I don't. He doesn't have like a schedule or anything like that, but if I am available, I would love to just get video of this guy in person. So
That's awesome. That's
hope
just
so.
awesome. I I love the Jumbotron's like one of the best things about pro sports.
Oh yeah.
Every
Oh
time
yeah.
I'm at a game, I'm like, what do I do to crazy get on the Jumbotron? Only place I've
What?
ever been on a Jumbotron is AutoZone Park, which is the AAA Cardinals affiliate in
Mm,
Memphis. Been on the Jumbotron there, uh,
nice.
but that was so fun. Really interesting, and it was like in the middle of like the seventh inning stretch when they're singing, and I'm like, and so yeah, but so
Nice. There you go. There you go. So I've made 2 jumbotrons. One at Target Field for the Twins, and that was my friend had won some crazy tickets. So we were sitting directly behind the visiting dugout, and
uh,
every time a left-handed batter or something like that was up, if
mhm,
they would switch the camera angle, you could see my face just in the corner of it or
mhm,
whatever it was, just how the angles were. So that
mhm,
was one. And then the Wolves, it's actually not super difficult to get on the Wolves Jumbotron, especially if you show up an hour before the game when like
mhm,
nobody is there and they're trying to just hype up the crowd and whatnot. So
mhm,
I have gotten on the Jumbotron before the game a few times for dancing. And then during the game, it's pretty easy if you use a hashtag or whatever and you get your picture thrown up there. I've done that a couple times with my daughters, and
oh, that's awesome.
they have been way less than impressed that they were on a giant TV screen. So, but I was psyched. So,
Yeah,
so
I I
someday
remembered
they'll
one more
understand.
time. I forgot. There was no jumbotron in the park, but huge Astros fan. And so one year, when I was in high school, uh, my dad, my brother, and I we drove to Florida to go see a spring training game,
Mhm.
and it was the Astros and the Rangers playing for a spring training game. And my dad, splurged because it's spring training, so we got some right behind the plate seats,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
we ended up on TV at Sports Center that night
Nice.
because the person sitting directly in front of us was former President George H.W. Bush and
That is
and all
incredible.
his security stuff. And so they're
Yes.
showing him, and there's my brother and I like
Yes. That
right
is
behind
perfect.
former President Bush. It was awesome.
And you knocked out not only national television, but you also got a picture with George W. Bush.
Yeah,
So that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Jumping over to the NFL, there's a couple of things that we want to talk about before we end today's podcast. One, we just want to go over the coaching carousel, just for a few moments here, and then we're going to preview the playoffs, including this weekend's wild card matchups. So, thoughts on coaching carousel? Um, Number one, I think the Redskins finally got it right, hiring Ron Rivera in quick fashion after firing Dan Snyder. I think might
They
be
didn't fire
actually
Dan
the
Snyder.
they didn't.
Snyder's the
Who did
owner.
they fire? That's
Snyder's the
sorry,
owner.
Dan
Whatever the
Dan
GM
Dan
is.
Snyder
Yeah.
firing the president of operations.
Yeah. The president. What's
Oh,
his name?
I
I,
don't care
I
about the
forget his name
Redskins
too.
enough
I'm
to
sorry. We're a
Bruce something,
terrible sports
Bruce
podcast.
something.
I've got to.
We are the worst.
Yes, I've got to go look that up.
Bruce.
Google is being slow.
That's all right. Anyways, so my
Bruce
why I was
Allen.
thinking, yes, Bruce Allen. Why I
Mhm.
was thinking of Dan Snyder was because of the way he introduced Ron Rivera. I don't know if you saw that,
Happy
but
Thanksgiving
happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
on like New Year's.
January 2nd, yeah. So fantastic start of the year for the Redskins. Besides happy Thanksgiving for everybody. So yeah, so I think that's great. Ron Rivera. I think a lot of people really were kind of leaning towards he probably shouldn't be fired, or he should have a job in the NFL for sure. I think everybody was definitely expecting the Browns to fire Freddie Kitchens. That's just 1 year experiment that didn't fit.
I
Trying
feel
to think
bad for
who
Freddie because he
else.
should have never been hired to begin with.
Yes, yeah, he was set up to fail. That's for sure.
Hmm.
That is for sure. As are most Browns coaches.
Yeah.
So,
Um, Rivera was definitely the best available,
oh yeah,
and I think we should get to the elephant in the room. Jason Garrett finally informed that he will not return next year. So, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, all you Cowboys fans. Um, it's good. I'm still a little salty that I don't get a coach firing because we somehow snuck into the playoffs, even though the Titans pulled that random mess there at the late season that I thought was going to knock us out. But
yeah.
but
Bill O'Brien will
we so
still Bill O'Brien.
we are stuck with Bill O'Brien. Yeah, we are stuck with Bill O'Brien. We will probably end up with a pretty convincing and embarrassing loss to the Bills. I'll give Brian his props early, not expecting anything. Um, JJ Watt will be back. They'll rely way too heavily on him to create something, and he won't do anything because torn pectorals are hard to return from.
Yeah.
Uh, and he won't really do anything. Their whole game plan will probably be ruined. Uh, Laramie Tunsil will be lined up uh, on the opposite side of Ed Oliver, and Ed Oliver will
Yeah,
probably
Big
sack
Ed.
Deshaun about 35 times. Yeah,
That's going to
uh,
be a tough one. That is going to
yeah,
be a tough one for that line.
and it just feels like I'm not sure if it's unless the only way I see of stopping that is Laramie Tunsil just lines up on the side of the line that Oliver does
Right.
every time.
Right.
Because he's the only one capable of stopping anyone, much less an Ed Oliver type.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was trying to think. Oh, Giants fired Pat Schumer.
Hmm. Which
Did we
rumor is they're going after Garrett. I don't know if that.
that well it was I was I've heard a few names tossed around, Garrett for sure. Um the Baylor coach, is that Rule?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've heard that
And
one.
then Mike McCarthy, I've heard, is
Yeah,
also another
hmm
candidate there. Um, I
and I'm not
can't,
even going to try to guess for the Cowboys because I don't know who would want to go there and not be allowed to call plays.
yeah, it's Vegas odds. Who did I see? I saw Urban Meyer at the top of the list. Lincoln Riley was next. And the only reason I saw the list is because Mike Zimmer is on the list, because Jerry loves him some Mike Zimmer, um,
My
which made the Vikings brass reinforce that Zimmer will not be fired this year,
mhm,
even if they exit the playoffs early. I think next year is going to be the breaking
mhm,
year for the Vikings.
yeah,
Especially, it'll be the end of Kirk Cousins' contract.
yeah.
Um, it will be, Zimmer is going to kind of be, well, we've been good for a few years, but we just haven't, we haven't made the big games. So it's just going to kind of be one of those situations: is how long can we suffer with being okay? Um, but Kevin Stefanski, our offensive coordinator, who is kind of
Mhm,
up and coming in the coaching tree, is
yeah,
also receiving an interview from the Browns. If the Browns hire him, they will ruin his career. I promise that.
yeah.
Um, I don't think he's an incredible coach. He's young, he's inexperienced, and you can tell that in his play calling at times. Um, he sometimes is playing checkers when people are playing chess. Not to say that he hasn't had success. Obviously Dalvin Cook has been very successful. Kirk has been very efficient this year. So,
I just don't know if I give a whole bunch of credit for that offense to an offensive coordinator for a team that had Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and Stephon Diggs.
very true. And
It's
the
it's why
only
I
the
don't.
only thing that I give
Mhm,
him credit for is that he did what Zimmer asked him to do. He made the
mhm,
running game a priority in the game plan, and you could tell
mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And obviously with Dalvin Cook, that's, you want to do that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
props to him. He used the screen game a lot, which when Cook went down, we didn't use a lot, and I thought that was just kind of a that's lame. But he used the screen game a lot to his advantage as well, which was a fantastic move because anytime you can get Stephon Diggs or Dalvin Cook in open space, you have defenses on their heels, which is
Mhm.
awesome. So, but yeah. So, anyways, all that to say, Browns, good luck in your coaching hiring. I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings tried to hire Pat Shurmur back as the
Mhm.
offensive coordinator. If
Yeah.
Stefanski were to leave, or if they were to go through the Kubiak tree because he is the offensive advisor at this point,
Mhm.
and maybe either Kubiak would take over or his son would take over, are all rumors that I've heard. But yeah, so, anyways, all that to say, it'll be fun kind of watching how it plays out, especially in the NFC East, where the excitement is to be had at this point. But anyways, let's take a look at the NFL wildcard matchups and the playoffs in general. We've got some really great storylines. The Patriots are in the wild card weekend for the first time in a decade. We've got
It's crazy.
the Eagles sneaking in at the very last second to nab that fourth seed and
Which
play a
I've got a take on that.
Okay, go
The
for it. I
Eagles
wanna hear
game.
that. Yeah.
Here's my thing. The Seahawks record looks really good, but I can't think of a single game they won in convincing fashion all year.
You're right about that.
And
Without the clutchness of Russell Wilson, the Seahawks are a losing record team for sure.
oh, for sure. And Zach Ertz being back might be a big deal for the
This
passing
is
game, Philadelphia.
this is definitely a classic. One team is getting hot and one team is getting hurt. And if the Eagles win this weekend, that is it right there.
Mhm.
With Seattle losing their running backs, that is huge because Tyler Lockett has not been enough, and even the emergence of Jacob Hollister,
Mhm.
their passing offense is not enough to carry them. I mean, they are built to run, and they are built to kind of ground and pound the team down, which is why I think they have success late game passing, is
Mhm.
because I think they have worn down teams with
Mhm.
possession time. They've worn down teams with that kind of grit and grind, and they had two immensely talented backs in Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. And
Mhm.
so now they're working on guys that they just signed, last week, and it
Showed
will
up with
be
Skittles.
interesting to see. That's exactly right. It'll be interesting to see. The Seahawks are hurt. The Eagles are peaking right now. I mean, they're playing the best that they have been all season, which is not saying that much, but
But
they are still
look,
a
the Eagles still
well-coached
made the
football team.
playoffs with what it feels like they picked up 4 guys at the back of Walmart to go play receiver for them.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So, Wentz is looking very efficient as of the last couple of weeks. So it is not surprising to me uh, if the Eagles pull that game out.
Again,
So,
I'm not
yeah,
calling for a quote unquote upset there because I think technically the Eagles are supposed to be the higher seed, right?
yes,
Because of
yep,
how divisions
four,
work.
four
But
versus five. Yep.
yeah, but I'm not calling the proverbial upset here by any means. But I am saying if we look back and the Eagles squeak out a win, I'm not going to be like, "Oh wow, I'm so shocked the 8-8 team won that." When
Yes.
it just
Yep.
doesn't feel like the Seahawks have been real convincing all
All right. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Eagles or Seahawks?
year. My thing is I trust Russell Wilson over Carson Wentz, and that's the only reason I'm going Seahawks.
As do I.
Mhm.
Seahawks as well. Looking at the other NFC matchup, my Minnesota Vikings traveled to New Orleans to battle the Saints in a wonderful playoff fashion. The last time that these two teams met in the playoffs, the Minneapolis Miracle happened.
Mhm.
The time before that of notoriety was during Bountygate, where Brett Favre
Yep.
was knocked out of the game
Mhm.
and unfolded later all the things about bounties and the suspensions and all of that. Um, so yeah, there's always some really good storylines with Saints Vikings. Um, so it's going to be a tough matchup for the Vikings. Their two slot or nickel cornerbacks are both out. Mike
Mhm.
Hughes got put on injured reserve today for a neck injury, and Mackenzie Alexander was declared out. So, with the secondary of the Vikings already looking kind of shoddy this year, it is definitely, in my prediction, will be a shootout. And essentially, it will be the who can score more, Thomas, Kamara, or Diggs and Cook, with hopefully Thielen thrown in that mix. So yeah, it's. I think it's going to be an offensive showdown. I think for the Saints, high profile games like this, their defense tends to show up a little less, i.e., the 49ers Saints game. And so if Jimmy G can do that to the Saints defense, I think Kirk and his efficiency inside a dome, I think the Vikings are going to be able to at least keep up, of course. But I'm going to make the homer pick, and I'm going to say that the Vikings squeak one out. I know that the entire world is pretty much betting against that. But if you were to pick Saints Vikings, who are you picking?
So here's my only thing we haven't mentioned. One, if you're secondary, I mean, if Harrison Smith doesn't have a huge game, it's over.
Oh, yeah,
It's over.
absolutely.
Uh, but the other thing is here's who's going to be player of the game. Uh, this is who I'm looking for. Does anyone on that O line have an answer for Cam Jordan?
Very true.
If
Very, very true.
if you don't have an answer for Cam Jordan, doesn't matter how many options Kirk Cousins has to throw it for if he's on his back. And
Very true.
and so that's the matchup I'm looking for. Because of that, and because of the straight up mind meld, it feels like that Michael Thomas and Drew Brees have had the last 4 games.
Oh, yeah, I fully expect Michael Thomas to have 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. I just
Um,
hope
I
that the
just
Vikings can come out and
I just that
match.
that's the thing. Like it straight up feels like the Saints offense has been a Madden game where
Oh,
one person is controlling
absolutely.
Breeze and Thomas at the same time.
Oh my word. Yeah.
It
It's been crazy.
There it's insane, and I just I don't get it. It's so that's my reasoning to go with the Saints. But it will come down to, can Harrison Smith break up enough passes, and can the Vikings O line slow down Cam Jordan, keep him under
Yeah.
3 sacks?
That I would agree with all of those points. If Michael Thomas comes away with 100-yard game, the Viking secondary, I would have to say, showed up, unless everybody else gets 500 yards or something like
Yeah,
that, which I don't see happening. But
yeah.
moving to the AFC, we have the Patriots and the Titans going head to head. The Patriots, as I mentioned, not in the wild card round for a decade. So this will be an interesting one, going against Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. And yeah,
Can I just say,
so
this matchup just makes my blood boil
why is
in
that?
anger. Okay, so under no circumstances am I ever going to root for the Patriots, ever.
Right, right. I can understand
But the Titans are evil, hateful people who
that.
destroyed my young heart by moving from Houston to stinking Nashville.
That I can
And I
understand
can't root for
your
them either.
ire
Like, I
there.
want both teams to lose. I want
If
both teams to lose. Now,
if anything,
but
hopefully
mhm,
you can see the Titans beat the Patriots and then the Titans be demolished by the
yes.
Texans or
You see,
something
that
like
would
that
be that
later
would
on
be
down
the
the line.
best.
That's like the
That would
full
be the
circle
that would
scenario.
be full circle and catharsis for me, but I can't trust Bill O'Brien with anything.
Right. No,
Um, so, but but the thing is, this is the weirdest year for the Patriots. It's the weakest Patriots I think we've seen in a long time. They
yep.
have no running game whatsoever, and
No,
the
they don't.
Titans and the Titans have a fantastic run defense.
Yep.
They have just a fantastic run defense. Uh, I had both the Bills and the Titans defense this year, and no one ran on me all year.
Yeah. Yep.
No
That's
one
exactly
ran on me
right.
all year. And so uh, I I just don't I don't see I don't want to call for the Patriots to lose, but the Titans have been so stinking hot.
Tannehill has done enough efficiently. I mean, he's not and not enough. I'll say this. Tannehill has been lights out efficiency wise. It's not like he's putting up gaudy numbers or anything like that, but since
He's just
he
not
took
making
over,
mistakes.
he is not making mistakes. And that is going to be, if the Patriots can cause the Titans to make some mistakes, they will win the game because the Titans are built on winning by playing flawless football, running the
And it's
ball.
pretty easy to play flawless football when you've got a guy who's approaching borderline Hall of Fame status at that tight end spot
Yep,
for the Titans, and Derrick Henry is a beast.
and he's an absolute monster. I used to just not believe in any Alabama running backs, especially after
Mhm,
the Trent Richardson debacle and
mhm.
having Derrick Henry on my fantasy football team. Um, I thought last year, the end of last year, was a fluke, and I was wrong. I was wrong
Mhm.
because he came back this year and did it for a full season, and they look good. And if I am picking this game, I'm going to pick the Titans to take the upset in
I
Foxborough.
I feel weird doing that too, but I don't think Stephon Gilmore has enough left in the tank. And when your best offensive weapon for Tom Brady to throw to is Julian Edelman, I I'm just not buying it. And if they win here, I don't buy them winning later in the playoffs. I know
Oh,
that's
absolutely,
that's it
absolutely.
sounds weird, but this is the first time in a long time I haven't been like, huh, the Patriots are probably going to win the AFC.
I do not buy anybody playing in the AFC wild card weekend winning beyond this weekend. I'm sorry to Brian's Bills. They have been good this year, but Ravens and Chiefs, they're just a different tier of team right now. And all of those guys, 3 through 6 could have great games at times, but the Ravens and Chiefs, they run on a different cylinder to me. And anybody coming out of this weekend is going to have a tough time advancing in the playoffs, no
My
matter who they face.
my major questions are, number one, if, and I'll pivot to those two, the Ravens and Chiefs. I don't see any of these bottom four teams having it on both ends with them. The Bills have a fantastic secondary that
Oh
can
yeah,
maybe slow Mahomes down, but randomly the Chiefs defense has got real good lately,
and has
especially that D line.
almost been carrying them at
Yeah,
certain points during the season. Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
and it's not an Andy Reid team, is
No,
what it feels like.
no, it does not.
and and they've just got real good. And then the Ravens are, it is beautiful to watch the Ravens play. They what one when you have the MVP as your quarterback, your fullback and your halfback made the Pro Bowl,
Yep,
and your defense is that good, and you've got Justin Tucker, the best kicker in the game, and your punter's fantastic, but he's never on the field ever.
right,
And
right.
then you've got Humphrey in your secondary. You've got a decent D line, and I mean they're really set up to make a deep run. I I don't see anyone beating them unless it's a meltdown in the playoffs from some mental stuff from Lamar just not being quite old enough and not
Or if
quite,
he gets hurt,
or if he gets hurt.
or if he gets hurt,
That's another option. Mm,
for sure.
mm.
I'm there with you.
But I
So
think it's
we're both picking Titans, right?
yeah. hmm
And then Texans Bills.
All right, can I
What are your thoughts? Go for it. Yeah,
can I be melancholy here for a second?
go for it.
Um, so uh, on the one hand, this might be the most successful year the Texans have ever had in franchise history. Um, Deshaun Watson is the second most athletic player in the NFL, and then he throws. He moves around in the pocket so well. Uh, he he makes he makes it look like he is playing chess when other people are playing checkers all the time.
Yeah.
The only player I would compare him to is Lamar. Now, Lamar's just a much more dynamic athlete, which is crazy that
hmm
you can make that degree of separation. But Deshaun has a top five arm as well as his legs, uh, and his mental game is just really good. The problem is the problem is he has no offensive line, and outside of Laramie, and and Laramie's great. Laramie's, like I said last week, Laramie deserves his All Pro. The defense does not look good right now.
Sure.
And if I can't trust your defense to slow down Josh Allen, um, that's not good.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's a perfectly decent quarterback. Like I don't get me wrong. I'd
hmm
rather have had Josh Allen than Sam Darnold or some other guys in that draft.
Yep.
Definitely will still take Lamar over him. But if I can't trust you to be able to game plan around Josh Allen, I'm not I'm not confident in your defense. Their defense has
Sure.
been real bad, especially with JJ out. I know JJ is supposed to be back, but I don't trust someone coming back after being gone for like 4 weeks.
Yep.
I don't trust it. And so I am going Bills, but I'm actually not as strong on it. But I'm probably a homer too with that as well.
Sure thing. I am. I'm actually going to pick the Texans.
Okay.
Um, I think, I would agree with your assertions for the most part about Deshaun. I mean, he is athlete wise. he's definitely a different level than a lot of quarterbacks. Um, the X factor for that offense is if Will Fuller plays or not. Um,
He's out. He's listed out.
he is okay.
Mhm,
Obviously, when he plays, that offense is just way more dynamic
mhm,
because it's just more loaded. He stretches the field
mhm,
in a way that buys Deshaun Watson time and playmaking ability.
mhm.
So that's a bummer for them. I'm still picking the Texans, and here is why. Josh Allen, statistically, against winning record teams or against playoff teams, I should say, I believe the statistic that I came across this week, his efficiency just drops dramatically.
Mhm.
And as much as I like the kid's talent and playmaking ability, I just don't think I don't think he plays that efficiently this weekend. Um, there is a little bit of momentum for the Texans defense with Watt coming back. Now, obviously, that is up to execution,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's a toss up either way. I have no skin invested in this matchup
Mhm.
whatsoever. So I am just leaning towards Houston for that
I
matchup.
will say
But
this. I will say this one thing. The Bills have struggled against receiving backs,
hmm
and Duke Johnson has been fantastic this year
yes, he
as
has. He
as a
has.
weapon out of the backfield in the passing game. So that is the one thing that kind of gives me hope. But then again, Bill O'Brien's our coach, so yeah. So
That's right.
we already discussed who we expect to be in the conference finals uh, in the AFC. So should we pivot back over to the NFC real quick for that?
I'm game with that too. Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Um, I have been on the 49ers train since, oh, what was that? Maybe week 5 or 6 when
mhm.
we talked about it on the podcast. So everybody
Yep.
knows I am all aboard that. It's not necessarily, as the pod guys know, it's not necessarily the Jimmy G train as much as it is the George Kittle train right now. Um,
Yeah.
because I would totally own a George Kittle jersey if he
Mhm.
does a couple of things like he did during the regular season. I mean, he is, I don't know. Obviously, he's a young, talented tight end. If he continues to play like he does, he is a Gronk level tight end. Um, if he continues with his kind of dominance at that position. He has the ability, let's say that. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that he will pan out to be, but if anybody in the league can make as big of an impression in the tight end position as Gronk did, I think Kittle is the man at this point. So I think it is the 49ers and uh, I just can't choose the Packers. I will I can't do it. I can't
I
do it.
understand. It's acceptable.
So yeah, it's it doesn't. If the Packers were to go 16-0, I still wouldn't buy it in. But I think there's a lot of people who actually are on the train that the Packers are kind of the worst best team out of all the top tier teams in the league.
I would
Their
agree with
defense
that.
shows up at times, and Rodgers shows up at times, but there have been very few games where they have just been completely dominant back to front. So
To me the Packers are in that same. I'm just shocked they're in that top group. I'm shocked they get a bye.
yeah,
Like
yep,
I'm shocked. I really thought the Saints were gonna get a little bit better there. It felt like I think scheduling had a lot to do with it. I feel like the
sure,
Saints,
yeah,
uh, and I feel like well, no, what really had to do with it is Drew Brees' thumb. That's it. That's
yeah,
it.
absolutely,
Uh, so I mean that's really it. Um, and no offense to Teddy Bridgewater, best backup quarterback in the NFL by far,
yeah,
hands down. But there's a huge drop off between possibly the guy who's been the best quarterback this year and a guy who was a backup.
right. Oh yeah, always.
uh,
So I guess if
mhm,
I were to pick the championship game, and the Vikings aren't going to make it,
mhm.
I mean, 49ers Saints is the matchup everybody wants to see again. I think 49ers Packers happened once, and that was not a good game.
Mm-mm,
But 49ers Saints was arguably the best game
of the year.
this season. It was definitely a top five game this season for
Mhm,
sure. So I would pick that just for watchability. But
mhm.
if the Vikings don't make it, I'm all aboard the 49ers train. Whoop, whoop.
Um, I I think it will be Niners Saints. That's what my gut is going with. Um, the 49ers have one of the most dynamic defenses in that I remember seeing in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and Jimmy doesn't make mistakes. Like it goes back to that. Jimmy doesn't make mistakes. And when your defense is that good and your quarterback doesn't make mistakes, I'm going to pick you to go to the Super Bowl.
And the emergence of a running game has
Mm,
really
mm,
helped
mhm,
balance out that offense. At the beginning of the season, they had four guys that you were kind of like, I don't know who to start in fantasy football.
mhm.
And now that they have a lead back in Mustard and he's been lights out the last couple of weeks, that has really, really made the offense hum as far as
Mhm.
and Debo Samuel is very, very underrated rookie wide receiver, I believe, as well. And I love when they get him involved in not only catching the ball but running the ball and running a sweep and things like that with him. Um, Kyle Shanahan is just a good coach, and I definitely believe in him more than I believe in probably any other mind
Yeah.
in the NFC offensively. Um, I mean, they dude can coach. So
When Emmanuel Sanders is like your fourth option offensively,
yeah, yep,
it's a good team.
that's a good team. That's for sure.
Um,
That's for sure.
and so with that, who are you picking to come out of the AFC, and then we'll go Super Bowl real quick.
So I'd take Ravens out of the Ravens and Chiefs game. That game I think is going to be a close game no matter what. But I
Yeah,
think
I
the
agree with you
Ravens just are. I mean, they have the most momentum in the league by far,
by far.
um, and I just don't think they can be stopped. I don't. Maybe if the Chiefs had home field advantage over the Ravens, that is a little bit of a different scenario.
Hmm.
But since the Ravens have home field, Ravens for sure. Ravens 49ers Super Bowl rematch for me, and I am going to pick the Ravens. My brother-in-law is a huge Ravens fan, so he will love that. But yeah, I just I don't think even the 49ers, I mean, and that was another good game this year.
Hmm.
So hopefully the watchability of this playoffs is through the roofs.
Hmm.
That benefits everybody. But Ravens 49ers would be definitely a fun kind of rematch.
Hmm.
Uh, and I like kind of the storylines there. You've got a high powered offense, high powered defense. Something's got to give. So, yeah, I like it. Ravens 49ers. I would go with the Ravens. What
You
about
see,
you?
I tend to agree with you, Ravens 49ers, but for the sake of being contrary, I'll pick the Niners, even though I would really enjoy to see Lamar just stick it to everyone and win a Super Bowl after
That's totally
everyone
fine. Yeah.
his whole career has been like, you can't play quarterback. So
How's that for a running back? That's
yeah,
exactly right.
for real.
That is exactly right.
So I am I would I cannot think of a thing like shy of the Texans winning a Super Bowl. I can't think of anything I'd enjoy more in this playoffs than the Ravens winning the Super Bowl.
No
Shy of
matter what, as soon as if the Vikings are out, whenever that happens, if that happens, hopefully, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Um, I will probably just be duct taping a red jersey and putting Kittle on it and just wearing it for the rest of the playoffs. So even though I think the Ravens will win, I'll probably be sporting some sort of Kittle wear during the Super Bowl.
All
So
right. Well, I'll root for the Ravens and call the Niners to win, and you root for the Niners and call the Ravens to win. That'll work.
sounds like a plan.
That's how,
Sounds like a plan.
that's what
Jason
we're
Garrett
doing.
is clapping somewhere right now for us. So that is perfect. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap up the pod this week. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy Wildcard Weekend, and we'll see you back next week for Sports Den the Podcast.